Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I've got a very special Father's Day buying guide for fragrances for you to go ahead and enjoy. It was kind of pitched to me for a while now. Actually, I meant to do one last year, completely forgot about it, and hence I remembered my Father's Day gift a little bit too late. But I want to give this a little couple days in advance just so you can kind of go out and buy your fragrances if that's what you want to go ahead and do. Now, let it be known right before I actually start this video that I am actually not for purchasing fragrances for other people as gifts unless you know absolutely that that's something that they want in regards to a particular fragrance. I believe fragrance is very personal. People will like things that other people will hate. And while one person may think, oh my god, this is the best fragrance ever, another person may think, meh, I don't think that fragrance is so great, or whatever. And because of that reason, I'm really for, somebody going out and purchasing the fragrance on their own. That said, I know that there are people who still, don't necessarily have the same viewpoint, and they still want to go ahead and buy somebody their fragrance. And in particular, we mean fathers in this case. So may still be insistent on purchasing fragrances, and for that reason, I'm here to give you a couple of suggestions just so you can actually help make that actual decision and possibly maybe buy a fragrance or two of these suggestions and give it to him or her. Or, sorry, him or whatever. But, so let's start off. First thing you want to keep in mind before you actually purchase this fragrance is what type of person is your father? Is he the type of person that is a very rugged person, a very in-your-face type of a person? Is he very manly type of a guy? Is your father, a little bit more on the quiet side? Is he very reserved? Is your father, have metrosexual tendencies? In other words, is he up to date? Is he fashionable? Is he stylish? All these things you will kind of want to keep in mind before you actually purchase the fragrance, because each fragrance has its own little vibe to it. And you can kind of search around online. You can kind of ask reps kind of what the vibe that it gives. But with each of these, I'm also going to give that vibe. The second thing that you want to obviously take in consideration is the price. Fragrances vary greatly from $5 to, in the high hundreds of dollars, basically. So, keep that price range in mind. But let's get on to it, all right? So if you're on the lower end of the price range, you don't want to really spend that much money, then I've got a couple of suggestions for you. First suggestion, Perry Ellis Red 360. This smells very similar to Aqua Diesel. Aqua Diesel is on the list, for those of you who don't know. This is basically a very popular scent. There aren't too many people who dislike it. It's very safe, something that pretty much everyone gets into. Has a little bit of an aquatic, lemony, spicy type of a vibe. You can purchase this one for around anywhere between usually $10 and $20, so it's very cheap on this end. The next one that I have in mind is something that you can actually purchase from a drugstore or one of those stores. Sorry for the camera focusing in and out. Should probably move a little bit closer. The Tim McGraw's Southern Blend. This is the next one. You can purchase it, like I said, from drugstores. It has a more of a manly type of a vibe to it. It has some tobacco in it. It has a little bit of sweetness to it. A little bit of a cigar-ish type of a vibe to it. Very manly type of a fragrance, and something that you would expect, I would guess, coming from Tim McGraw. So Tim McGraw Southern Blend. You can purchase this usually for around $10 to $20 as well. Next one that I have on my list is one that has actually been discontinued. It's been discontinued, but you can still find it readily available, and that is Dirty English. This is a pretty big bottle for it, but Dirty English has this masculine, it's very rough, a very rough type of a scent. So if you have somebody who is, I would say, an aggressive type of a personality, consider getting this one for your father if that's the type of personality he has. Doesn't really have the projection that really goes off, but you can still find it actually decently priced, pretty cheap, anywhere between $10 and $30 actually. I've seen this a little bit more expensive, and I think the price is probably going up a little bit just because it's more on the rarer side. So Dirty English is another one. Now, the majority of the fragrances I'm going to mention are in the designer range, mid-range, anywhere. You can find these next ones anywhere between $30 and usually like $70. So with that in mind, let's get on to them. The first one that I'm going to mention, I think, is a very universally loved fragrance. In fact, many wives, I've noticed a lot of older women saying that they absolutely love this fragrance and want to buy it for their significant other. And that is Yves Saint Laurent's L'Homme. Very solid choice if you're looking to get something for your father on that realm. That's very soft. The only reason I would caution somebody against it for getting for their father has a little bit of a softer type of a vibe to it. I'm going to bring up the counterpart as well, La Nuit de l'Homme, and this one is essentially a spicy, powdery type of a scent that is really good for night out. You might get a little bit more of a Metro vibe from this one. Same thing with this one as well, but not so much. This one's just a little bit softer, and this one is a little bit more powdery, a little bit more heavy and intense than the original L'Homme. So these two from the house of Yves Saint Laurent are pretty good. Now, from the house of Christian Dior, you can probably guess the two that I'm going to mention for those of you who collect fragrances, and that is Dior Homme and Dior Homme Intense. Both of these, I think, are good fragrances to consider to purchase for your father. Now, yes, they're a little bit more on the trendy side, but I don't necessarily, presume that just because you're old, you have to wear old people's fragrances or something like that. Far from it. Feel free, wear what you want, and in this case, I really do think that it works well for fathers on it. So both Dior Homme Intense. The difference between the two, if you're kind of wondering, this one is a little bit more wearable for, the day, and this is a little bit more wearable for the night. That's really all in between. But they both have a similar iris type of a cocoa vibe. I should warn you, this does smell like lipstick, Dior Homme Intense. But it's a good lipstick that I haven't seen anyone really say, oh, I'm not going to wear this because it smells like lipstick. So take that in mind, all right? Now, the next fragrance, classic, worldwide bestseller, Aqua Diesel. This smells very similar to this. So between these two fragrances, this one's just cheaper than this one, but I honestly like this one a little. I honestly like this one a little bit better than I do Aqua Diesel. But Aqua Diesel, rock solid, can't really go wrong with it. Lemon, fresh, very wearable, enjoyable. Aqua Diesel. Now, from the line of John Varvatos, actually, overall, I am very high on the line of John Varvatos for mature men. So for dads, I think it works excellent on it. I've got the original John Varvatos and John Varvatos Vintage. Both of these, I have actually purchased these for older men in my family, uncles and stuff like that. So these two along the lines, the John Varvatos lines are generally pretty good for purchasing for fathers. So take a look at those lines as well. Another designer that we have here is one that gets a lot of compliments as well. And this one is Midnight in Paris. Not to be underestimated. It's one that garners, it's one that I believe flies under the radar. You don't see it really mentioned that much on top of it, but as far as a Father's Day gift, go out, give them a try. Again, caution on this one, has a little bit of a powdery vibe as well too. He might not vibe with it, but give it a try. And we move on to, if you want to buy spend some more money and purchase a little bit more expensive fragrances, then I suggest, in general, I take a look at two lines. One, Creed fragrances. If you want to get your father more of a lighter type of a fragrance, they're generally going to run you anywhere between $100 and $300. And for darker fragrances, I would say go for Tom Ford fragrances. Those two niche houses or high-end houses or more expensive houses, or like to call them, generally have fragrances that I say are a little bit on the safer side when you're buying fragrances for that much money. But outside of that, I would recommend from the house of Frappin, Humaniste. Rock solid. Again, out of all my fragrances, this one has been asked about the most so people can buy. Humaniste, an excellent choice for an older gentleman or for your dad. And if I was to give one suggestion from each of those houses that I mentioned earlier from Creed, I would suggest Creed's Green Irish Tweed. And from the house of Tom Ford, I would suggest something along the lines of Oud Wood, both of whom garner compliments in their own right. A little bit more on the darker side, more seductive. This one's a lot on the fresh side, very green, very open, very inviting. So all in all, those are about the suggestions that I have for if you're looking to purchase something for your father on Father's Day or anything like that, as far as fragrance-wise goes. If you have any questions whatsoever, if you have any questions about purchasing fragrances for your father and whatnot, feel free to leave a comment down below or send me a message. I try and be punctual in getting back to people. But either way, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and enjoy the purchasing fragrances for your fathers.